There have been bad Disney CEOs before. There have been unpopular ones. A few of them united Disney's fans, employees, and investors in sheer rage, quite like Bob Chapek. He took the reins of the world's most beloved entertainment empire only to become its greatest villain. Theme park prices skyrocketed, fan favourite perks disappeared, messy public feud with Scarlett Johansson turned Hollywood against him, a disastrous political battle in Florida put Disney in the crosshairs of a governor, and then, after just 2 years of mounting controversy, Chapek was unceremoniously fired, with his old boss Bob Iger returning to clean up the mess. So how did it all go spectacularly wrong? In this deep dive, we're breaking down the story in 3 acts: the rise, the reign, and the fall. It's filled with power struggles, public outrage, and a CEO who learned the hard way that running Disney is no fairy tale. Buckle up. This one's a ride. Hey, I'm Calamity Poo. Here we talk about everything from theme park history to corporate chaos to entertainment deep dives and, of course, the occasional review, because sometimes what's happening behind the magic is just as interesting as what's on screen. And when it comes to Disney, things don't get much wilder than Bob Chapek's short but incredibly messy reign as CEO. So if you're into theme parks, business drama, and stories that make you say, wait, they actually did that? Then you're in the right spot. All right, let's get into it. Starting with how Bob Chapek went from running Disney's home entertainment division to taking over the whole company. Our story begins far from the spotlight of Cinderella Castle, in the back offices and boardrooms where a Disney career was quietly forged. Bob Chapek was the consummate company man, a textbook example of Disney's corporate ladder in action. Armed with an MBA and a no-nonsense attitude, Chapek joined Disney in 1993 as a marketing director in the home video division. Back then, the company's fortunes were built on VHS tapes and animated classics, and Chapek quickly proved his mettle. It was the executive who knew how to squeeze the most out of every release, deftly navigating the transition from VHS to DVD and later Blu-ray. Then CEO Michael Eisner once remarked that Chapek was always an executive that he knew would be on the rise. He knew how to grow the business while adjusting the changing marketplace, which was intense. His early success in home entertainment earned Chapek a reputation as a reliable business-savvy operator, someone who could adapt to industry shifts and keep profits rolling in. Chapek's determination saw him climb step by step through Disney's ranks. By 2011, he was president of Disney's Consumer Products Division, where he displayed a keen corporate mindset. When Disney acquired Marvel and Lucasfilm, Chapek wasted no time integrating Star Wars and Marvel merchandising into Disney's global licensing machine. And the result? Disney became the world's largest licensor of intellectual property, monetizing its characters across toys, apparel, and beyond. Chapek was in his element, negotiating big deals like an $80 million Hasbro contract for Marvel toys, and proving he could turn fandom into fortunes. He launched new initiatives like Disney's Magic Academy, educational apps, showed an instinct for market opportunities, and demonstrated to top brass that he could marry Disney magic with business pragmatism. His successes did not go unnoticed. In February 2015, Bob Chapek was tapped to lead one of Disney's crown jewels, the Parks and Resorts division. This was Disney's most public-facing business, the beloved theme parks and cruise ships that defined Disney enchantment. It was a high-profile role and a true test of Chapek's abilities beyond home videos and merchandise. With characteristic efficiency, Chapek dove into the job. He oversaw multi-billion-dollar expansion projects at the parks, supervising construction of ambitious new lands and attractions across the globe. Under his watch, Disney invested over $24 billion into its theme parks, resorts, and cruise line, more than the company had spent to acquire Pixar, Marvel, and Lucasfilm combined. To Disney's board and then CEO Bob Iger, Chapek's stewardship of these massive projects proved he could deliver on time and on budget. He developed a reputation as an executive who got things done, a leader who could navigate complex projects and spared no expense to fuel Disney's growth. By 2017, as park profits surged, industry insiders began whispering that Chapek might be the heir apparent to Disney's CEO position. Unlike the creative visionaries who had led Disney in the past, Chapek was seen as an operations and numbers guy. He rarely courted the spotlight or the Hollywood glitterati. Instead, he pored over balance sheets and efficiency reports, honing a cost-conscious philosophy. Chapek's mentality was molded by decades on the business side, maximizing revenue, cutting fat, and prioritizing his bottom line. This approach earned him respect in corporate circles, but also certain weariness amongst Disney's creative ranks and diehard fans. To some within the company, he was brilliant at monetization. To others, he lacked the spark of imagination and warmth that defined Disney's culture. Still, Bob Iger saw Chapek's integrity and business acumen as assets. In Iger's eyes, Chapek could ensure Disney's empire kept generating profits in a changing media landscape, even if Chapek wasn't known for rubbing elbows in Hollywood or nurturing talent relationships. And so, in early 2020, after 27 years of loyal service, Bob Chapek reached the pinnacle. In a move that stunned Disney employees and industry analysts alike, Bob Iger handpicked Chapek to be the next chief executive officer of the Walt Disney Company. The announcement in February 2020 came as a shock. Chapek was a relative unknown to the public, not the creative executive many had expected. Even inside Disney, some thought streaming chief Kevin Mayer would get the job. But Iger had made his choice. Chapek, the reliable company man, would now steer the ship of Walt's storied kingdom, with Iger stepping back, though notably staying on as executive chairman and, tellingly, retaining creative control. The stage was set for a new era. Bob Chapek's rise was complete. He was about to discover, however, that ascending to the throne of Disney was the easy part. Holding on to it would prove far more challenging. Bob Chapek took command of Disney at the moment of imminent crisis. Just weeks after he became CEO, the world was engulfed by the COVID-19 pandemic. Disney's theme parks shuttered their gates, films were pulled from theaters, cruise ships docked, the revenue engines of the Magic Kingdom ground to a halt. It was a trial by fire for the new CEO. Behind the scenes, Chapek and Iger had an awkward power dynamic. Iger, seeing the company through the pandemic, quietly reassumed some control and dubbed himself executive chairman, while Chapek navigated those day-to-day decisions. In public, Chapek projected calm. He slashed expenses, kept Disney's finances above water through the storm, and focused on getting the parks back open. By August 2020, Disney posted its first quarterly loss in almost 20 years, a sobering milestone that underscored the gravity of the situation. It was against this turbulent backdrop that Chapek began to reveal his own vision for Disney's future. To no one's surprise, that vision was unapologetically business-driven. In October 2020, barely 8 months into his tenure, Chapek made a dramatic move. He announced a major reorganization of Disney's media and entertainment operations. The goal? Pivot the entire company towards streaming. Disney Plus had launched in late 2019 to great fanfare, and Chapek doubled down on it as the center of Disney's universe. He created a new division that stripped power from traditional studio executives and placed distribution and monetization decisions under one unified unit. From now on, data and demand, not just creative intuition, would dictate what movies were made and how audiences saw them. Chapek's team, led by his right-hand man, Kareem Daniel, would decide which project went to theaters and which went directly to Disney+. Internally, this was a seismic shift. For decades, Disney had been a place where visionary studio heads and creative producers held sway. But Chapek's reorganization tilted the balance towards analytics and corporate strategy. Streaming was the future, and Chapek was determined to have Disney not only ride the wave, but dominate it. Under Chapek's reign, the company's mantra became flexibility. The old rules were out. In the spring of 2021, Chapek openly mused that Disney might never return the traditional 75-day exclusive theatrical window for new films. He proved it weeks later by cancelling the theatrical release of Pixar's Luca entirely, sending it straight to Disney+. For families stuck at home, moves like this were a welcome surprise. Disney Plus was becoming the go-to place for new content. But inside Hollywood, alarm bells rang. In summer 2021, Disney made the controversial decision to release Marvel's Black Widow simultaneously in theaters and on Disney Plus for an extra fee. The hybrid release might have been a necessary pandemic-era gamble, but the fallout was ugly. Scarlett Johansson, the film star, sued Disney, alleging the streaming's release violated her contract and cost her substantial back-end earnings. Rather than quietly negotiate, Disney, with Chapek at the helm, went on the offensive. The company's official statement slammed Johansson as call-outs for her lawsuit and even disclosed her $20 million salary, painting her as greedy for wanting more. The blowback was immediate. Observers across Hollywood were shocked by Disney's tone. Marvel Studios chief Kevin Feige was reportedly angry and embarrassed at how a longtime Marvel star was being treated. To industry veterans, this was a glaring misstep that wouldn't have happened under Bob Iger's more diplomatic watch. Chapek's hard-nosed, legalistic approach to a talent dispute was a sign of a new regime, one focused on the bottom line, even at the expense of Disney's carefully cultivated relationships and image. This incident marked the first major crack in Chapek's reign. It painted a picture of a CEO perhaps out of touch with the delicate people side of the business. Investigators later revealed that Iger, watching from the sidelines, lamented Mr. Chapek's seeming lack of empathy and emotional intelligence, which resulted in an inability to communicate with or relate to Hollywood's creative community, saying that under Chapek, Disney was losing its soul. For a company built on imagination and storytelling, that was a chilling critique. Still, Chapek pressed forward. Disney Plus subscriber numbers were skyrocketing and an apparent vindication of his strategy. By late 2021, Disney's streaming services combined boasted over 100 million subscribers, closing in on Netflix's lead. Chapek was keen to trumpet these gains and did so frequently in earnings calls, and behind the scenes, the costs of this streaming war were mounting, something that would come back to haunt him later. Meanwhile, in Disney's theme parks, the realm Chapek knew best, a quieter storm was brewing. As the parks reopened after a lengthy COVID closures, loyal fans returned to find a different Disney experience, one often missing a bit of its old magic. Under Chapek's directive, Disney introduced the Genie Plus service in 2021, a smartphone-based itinerary planner that also happened to replace the once-free FastPass system with a paid tier for line skipping. For up to $15 to $25 per ticket per day, guests could now pay for the privilege of shorter lines. It was an upsell, pure and simple, and many fans will live in. Longtime Disney goers saw it as monetizing the last bits of free convenience in the parks. Combined with park reservation requirements and a scaled-back entertainment, it felt to them like Disney was a nickel and diming guests in the name of enhanced experience. Chapek defended these changes, touting Genie Plus as a success and claiming guest feedback was overwhelmingly positive. But on fan forums and social media, the reaction was overwhelmingly negative. His business mindset was on full display: maximize revenue from each visitor, especially as the parks recovered from the pandemic losses. And indeed, Disney parks posted record per guest earnings under Chapek's tenure, but at a reputational cost. The company's most devoted fans began derisively referring to the CEO as Bob Paycheck or Bob Chapek, nicknames that summed up the feeling that profit was being put before people. And by late 2021 and into 2022, reports of price hikes at Disney parks became routine, almost an expected annual tradition. Ticket prices climbed, popular perks that used to be free or low cost now carried hefty fees. Wanted to skip the line on Star Wars Rise of the Resistance? That's going to cost you extra. Prefer a park hopping annual pass? Those prices jumped too. During one earnings call, Disney's CFO even mused that reducing portion sizes at restaurants could help cut costs, quipping it would be good for some people's waistlines, a comment that infuriated many loyal patrons as tone deaf. Disney under Chapek sometimes projected an image of relentless monetization. In October 2022, when Disneyland in California instituted another round of steep price increases, tickets up by 8% across tiers, Genie Plus up by 25%, Park Backlash hit a fever pitch. How much money do you want to make from us? One dismayed Disney fan tweeted, echoing the sentiment of thousands. Another fan joked bitterly, so when will Bob Chapek start charging guests for breathing in Disney parks? That's $50 for each breath, ma'am. The public perception was that Chapek's Disney cared more about wallets than wishes. Inside the company, morale was reportedly strained as well. Chapek's leadership style was described by insiders as tough and unrelenting, with a focus on efficiency that some employees found stifling. Creative departments felt squeezed by the new data-driven decision-making. Longtime cast members, Disney's parlance for employees, in the parks noticed a shift too. As the company navigated layoffs and rehirings post-pandemic, many experienced staffers didn't return, and the newer workforce struggled to maintain Disney's famed customer service standards. The result, as some park visitors noted, was a slight freeing of the Disney magic at the ground level. Cast members were overworked, and fans noticed cutbacks, shorter operating hours, fewer live performers, maintenance issues on rides. These were perhaps inevitable growing pains after COVID, But many placed the blame squarely on Chapek's shoulders, citing his cost-cutting ethos. A confidence crisis was quietly growing within Disney's rank and file among creative partners who felt Chapek didn't get them. Yet despite the grumblings in 2022, Disney's board of directors publicly stood by him. In June 2022, they renewed Chapek's CEO contract for 3 more years, a vote of confidence meant to quash speculation that his job was in jeopardy. Little did anyone know that, within months, that contract extension would become virtually meaningless. For much of Chapek's reign, Disney's financial numbers looked solid on the surface. The theme parks bounced back from the pandemic with pent-up demand, even if fans were grumbly about prices. The Disney Plus subscriber graph kept shooting up quarter after quarter. Chapek's decisions, while often controversial, were adding short-term value. Higher revenues per customer here, greater market share there. He appeared every bit the modern CEO, unafraid to make unpopular moves if they improved the bottom line. But beneath the glitz of quarterly earnings, trouble was brewing in the Magic Kingdom. Bob Chapek was about to face a perfect storm of challenges that even his business acumen couldn't overcome. The stage was set for Act 3, the fall of Disney's most embattled leader in decades. The beginning of the end for Bob Chapek arrived courtesy of a controversy that, on the surface, had little to do with balance sheets or theme park operations. In early 2022, Florida's legislature introduced the Parental Rights in Education Bill, better known by its critics as the Don't Say Gay Bill, which aimed to restrict discussion of LGBTQ topics in schools. Disney, with its enormous presence in Florida and a long-standing support of LGBTQ pride events, was expected by many employees and fans to take a stand against the bill. But as the legislation gained national attention, Disney's response under Chapek was silence. He initially insisted the company would refrain from public political stances, suggesting that diverse stories in Disney's content were a more powerful statement than any corporate press release. In private, Chapek aimed to keep Disney neutral, worried that speaking out would entangle the company in a partisan fight. This backfired spectacularly. Chapek's stance angered Disney employees, especially those in the LGBTQ community, and their allies. In March 2022, Pixar's employees penned an unprecedented open letter accusing Disney executives of censoring nearly every moment of overtly gay affection in Pixar films, and expressing hurt that the company had remained quiet on a law they felt was harmful. The internal revolt was swift and public. Disney artists and even some of the talent began to openly criticize the company's lack of response, effectively calling out Chapek by name. Facing a mounting backlash, Chapek attempted a course correction. He issued a memo to staff that included a qualified apology admitting, "I let you down," and vowing to pause all political donations in Florida. But to many employees, it was too little too late. The apology was seen as weak and driven more by PR damage control than genuine conviction. On the other side of the political spectrum, Chapek's about-face infuriated conservatives. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis seized the moment, lashing out at what he termed a woke corporation, intruding itself in state affairs. Disney, previously considered untouchable in Florida due to its economic clout, suddenly found its special self-governing status in the state on the chopping block. In April 2022, in an extraordinary rebuke, Florida's government passed a bill to rescind Disney's self-governing district, that's the Reedy Creek Improvement District, that had allowed Disney World to operate with autonomy for 50 plus years. Chapek's handling of the situation had managed to anger both those who wanted Disney to do more and those who felt Disney had done too much. As one analysis noted, Chapek found critics on both sides of the issue, with some saying his lack of response and subsequent apology were insufficient, while the others were criticizing Disney for being too woke. It was a lose-lose scenario, born from the hesitation and miscalculation. The Don't Say Gay fiasco became a defining example of Chapek's leadership woes, a case study in how a CEO's missteps can cause moral and political crossfire. The fallout extended beyond Florida's borders. Disney suddenly became a political punching bag. A group of US senators even demanded investigations into Disney's content ratings, accusing the company of exposing children to inappropriate content in retaliation for Disney's stance against the bill. The culture wars had engulfed the House of the Mouse, and Chapek was at ground zero. Inside Disney, the episode shattered what remained of employee confidence in Chapek's leadership. For many on the creative side, it confirmed their fears that Chapek lacked the values and finesse needed to uphold Disney's legacy of inclusion and storytelling. The company's famed magic was not just about fairy tales, it was also about an image of doing the right thing. And in the eyes of many employees, Chapek had failed that test. Even as Chapek grappled with the Florida crisis, other cracks in Disney's armor became visible. In 2022, the pivot to streaming, while bringing in subscribers, was racking up steep losses. Disney was spending billions on new content for Disney+, Star Wars and Marvel shows, Pixar spin-offs, you name it, all to win the streaming wars. And by the fall of 2022, the financial reality hit hard. Disney's streaming division had lost $1.5 billion in a single quarter, more than double its loss from the previous year. The eye-popping figure alarmed investors and board members alike. It turned out you can't lose money on streaming forever, even if you're gaining subscribers. Chapek had bet big on growth, assuming profits would come later, but the later was looking uncertain. At the same time, the theatrical movie business was wobbling. Pixar's Lightyear, one of the first Pixar films under Chapek to get a full theatrical release post-pandemic, underperformed dramatically in summer 2022, one of the worst Pixar box office runs ever. Many analysts partly blame Chapek's strategy of sending Pixar's last several films straight to streaming, which might have diluted audience expectations for Lightyear. In essence, the argument was that Chapek's zeal for Disney Plus had inadvertently hurt Disney's other golden egg, the consistent, decades-long track record of Pixar and Disney animation hits. Additionally, creative churn was happening within Disney Studios. Long-time executives and creators were reportedly chafing under Chapek's data-first approach, and some exited. In one notable shakeup, Chapek abruptly fired Peter Rice, a well-respected television content executive, in mid-2022, a move that surprised Hollywood and was seen as Chapek consolidating power. Every month seemed to bring a new unsettling headline. By the fall of 2022, the mood around Disney had shifted dramatically from just a year prior. What had been optimism about a post-COVID rebound and streaming future was turning into anxiety. In November 2022, Disney announced its quarterly earnings and the news was grim. The company misread profit expectations by a wide margin. The streaming losses were at their peak. Operating income from traditional TV and cable was flat. Disney's stock, which had already been sliding for months, plummeted on the news, hitting its lowest level since the early days of the pandemic. On CNBC, high-profile analyst Jim Cramer, echoing growing investor frustration, outright called for Bob Chapek to be fired. That was a shocking moment, a public call for the CEO's removal on national television. Disney's board of directors, who had extended Chapek's contract just months earlier, began to seriously question whether he was the right person to lead Disney out of this slump. Behind closed doors, whisper turned into action. Veteran board members and Disney leaders started placing calls, including to Bob Iger, who was only a year into his retirement. The climax came on a Sunday night, November 20th, 2022. In a move that stunned the business world, Disney's board announced that Bob Chapek was out effective immediately and that Bob Iger was returning to lead the company for a 2-year stint. The news was framed officially as Chapek stepping down, but make no mistake, this was an ouster. The board had effectively turned against him, deciding that a course correction under Iger was needed to save Disney from further turmoil. Chapek himself was reportedly blindsided by the decision, finding out only shortly before the public did. The timing and swiftness were almost cinematic, coming just over a week after Chapek had tried to reassure everyone that Disney's future was bright. In fact, days earlier, he had emailed staff about tough and uncomfortable cost-cutting measures ahead, preparing for layoffs and freezes to curb the bleeding. Now, suddenly his tenure was over. Disney's stock price jumped at the news of Iger's return, rising on relief and optimism. Employees at Disney reportedly cheered, some literally, as word spread in text messages and emails that Big Bob was back. One PR veteran joked that the size of relief in Burbank registered on the Richter scale. The Chapek era had ended as abruptly as it began. In the aftermath, Disney moved quickly to unwind some of Chapek's most criticized policies. Iger shelved Chapek's corporate reorganization and restored decision-making power to creative executives. One of Iger's first moves was the ousting of Kareem Daniel, the lieutenant who had spearheaded Chapek's distribution-first strategy, signaling a return to a more traditional Disney structure. At the theme parks, plans were set in motion to bring back some of the charm that had been lost, even rolling back certain price hikes to win back goodwill. It was as if Disney wanted to erase the memory of Chapek's controversial reign, and Chapek himself, after nearly 3 decades at Disney, he exited with a substantial payout, reports say roughly a $20 million severance, but also with a tarnished legacy. He had led Disney through one of its most difficult periods and made some undeniably tough choices. Yet in the end, many concluded that Chapek's own missteps had amplified the difficulties. As one commentator noted starkly, there's no question, he needed to go. Even Disney's most loyal fans, who can be fiercely protective of the brand, rejoiced at the news of Chapek's downfall. In a twist worthy of a Disney finale, Bob Chapek, the once steady company man, had become a unifying villain in the eyes of Disney fandom. He unified them not in celebration, but in shared relief that his vision for Disney would no longer be the company's future. So how will history remember Bob Chapek? In our retrospective, Chapek's tenure stands as a cautionary tale of corporate leadership. He inherited the keys to the kingdom at an impossible time, a global pandemic, and to his credit, he kept the kingdom afloat. His push into streaming positioned Disney for the future, and the company's financial footing in certain areas actually improved under his watch. But leadership isn't judged by numbers alone. It's judged by trust, vision, and the ability to navigate crises without losing the soul of the enterprise. Chapek's downfall showed that a CEO's bedside manner can matter just as much as strategic savvy. His reign was marked by public relations blunders, alienated talent, disenchanted fans, and a loss of confidence from those who mattered most. The board lost faith. The creative community grew estranged. The fans, Disney's lifeline, grew cynical. And ultimately, the magic left the kingdom on Chapek's watch. In the grand tier list of Disney CEOs, Bob Chapek's chapter ranks right near the bottom. He joins the short-lived, the controversial, the cautionary figures in corporate law for steering the company through unprecedented storms with making waves of his own that nearly sank the ship. I'd say Bob's legacy as a F-tier CEO on our tier list. A failing grade in the realm of Disney leadership. It's a harsh verdict for a man who gave decades to the company, but one earned by a tumultuous tenure that will be remembered as one of the most controversial in Disney's history. The rise was promising, the reign was turbulent, and the fall was dramatic. Bob Chapek's story is a modern Disney saga, one from which even the Magic Kingdom had to learn some hard lessons.